The town was platted in 1859 on what was originally his farm. He had 600 acres in this area. The name changed from Horde Station to Huron when in the late, probably 1860s, early 1870s, two families, the Prossers and the Smiths, moved here from Huron County, Ohio, and so the name was changed from Horde Station to Huron. They brought machinery with them, and they started what they called the Huron sawmills. And so pretty soon everybody forgot about Horde Station. Here at the Baptist Church, the only two graves in the churchyard are of William and his wife, Catherine. A little funny story about Huron. It says in September of 1939, Huron residents swore that a spider wove the name Wendell Wilkie into its web. Older residents remembered that a spider had also woven the name McKinley into its web, and McKinley subsequently won the election. Wilkie was not so fortunate. Okay? If you want to step up here and look, you can. As you see, William was a, I believe, war of 1812, but maybe it is revolutionary, I'm not sure.
Well, thank you. He just run off the left, didn't he? Thank you.
Well, you got to grab hold of them. Once I get started, I can turn back.
Look at that. The original Huron School actually sat over here on this lot, and it was later moved down a block, and we're going to talk about it a little bit later. But the actual school sat there next to the old church. Okay, we're going to walk up here a block or so. You'll probably want to go down the street, meet us over there in that other church parking lot. We're going to go down the alley. There was a time in our history when the railroads dominated transportation. Here at this high crossing back behind this mobile home, there was a scene of a tragic, terrible accident on December 23rd, 1924. Let's see what these girls have to say.
Chapman and her sister Bertha, her other sister Bertie Richardson, and their cousin Florence DeMons. They're all dead.
How can that be? Bertie is only 18 and Florence is 20.
Yes, and the two older sisters, Bertie, she had 5 kids, and Florence had 3.
Well, tell me what happened, Ida.
Well, they had come into Wilson's store. Wilson's store used to be right over there, and they were going to go Christmas shopping. And after they had a good time there, they decided to go home. Fred, their brother, was going to drive in his Ford touring car, and they went up to the high crossing there, or trying to. That was the way home, and it got stuck on the the weather was bad. The car stalled as they went up the hill, and then as they got clear up to the top, right on the railroad crossing, it stalled again, and the train should have gone by an hour and a half ago, but right then it came. They get the car, pushed it, twirled it around, and it dragged the car for a long way.
Oh, what a shame. How is Fred doing?
Fred's broken both of his legs, but he's going to survive. He's just so upset about his sisters all dying.
Well, nobody expected nobody expected the train to come through at that time. Those poor children. What a sad Christmas for the family.
Yes.
In May of 1925, the B&O Railroad Company paid $15,000 in damages to the family members of the 4 women killed on that terrible day. $5,000 was awarded to each of the married women's families, and $5,000 to the family of the 2 unmarried girls. We don't know the outcome of Fred Chapman's suit against the company. Let's continue on. If you come up, as you leave, if you come up along the back of the railroad tracks, you can see it a lot more plainly. But it was a very steep crossing, and the old cars just wouldn't pull the hill. It says they'll see a man walking up through here carrying a lantern. So probably not quite dark enough for a lantern yet, but if we're joined by somebody, just welcome them. Another Huron resident whose destiny was affected by the B&O Railroad was a foolhardy regular lawbreaker by the name of Royal Terrell. He was known to jump the B&O trains and everything as they came through town. So it said one time he jumped off the B&O number 1 as it passed through town. And even though he wasn't seriously injured, he, did a couple of cartwheels and that kind of stuff, and he had to be carried home. The next day he jumped on the number 2 and was back on the road again. Roll Terror was regularly picked up and along the track suffering from injuries, but he always seemed to hop right back up again. Once, to escape an officer of the law, Terrell reportedly jumped out of the window of a rushing passenger train. And only weeks before his death at the age of 35, Roll Terrell was knocked from the Moanon number 5 train in front of the Hatfield Hotel in Bedford. If you guys are familiar with Bedford, where the old Indiana Gas Company was there on 14th Street. That was the side of the Hatfield Hotel. So he was, says after he jumped off the train, it says after turning a couple of somersaults, he got back up and caught the rear steps of the parlor car, not even losing his hat in the whole adventure. Roll was described by the Bedford Mail newspaper as lawless to an extreme degree. He had been arrested for arson, fraud, liquor violations, and had been in the local jail many times and had served at least 2 sentences in the state prison. His final adventure, however, in February of 1910, had nothing to do with trains. These 2 men will tell us all about his last adventure.
Hello, my name's Elmer. Earl and I worked together at the Lehigh Portland Cement Company over in Mitchell. The day he died, we were both loading a push car full of stone into the rock crusher. I don't know what happened exactly, but suddenly he lost his footing and fell headfirst into the machine. Suddenly the push car tipped over and the stone dumped in right on top of him and dragged him further into the machine, into the hammers. It was the most awful thing I've ever seen in my life. I won't never forget it.
I'm Jesse. I got the power shut off really quick, and then we all worked to try to get Roll out of the crusher. We had to take 1 stone out at a time up off of him. When we finally got him uncovered, he was still alive, but just barely. His body was torn and crushed, and his head was, well, you don't want to know. But we lifted him out of there and laid him up on the wooden tram above the crusher, and we could tell he was a goner. And just a few minutes after that, he died.
We took him over to the Clements Undertakers and we said goodbye to a real character.
Okay. By the time you get up here, you're about to be panting a little bit. It doesn't look too bad, but once you do it,
We're in the lead now, I'll be back and back before it's over.
Rowena and I walked this last night. It was a little bit colder last night. When we got up here, we walked. Okay, a few miles south of this area is the Bonge Chapel Cemetery. The cemetery is known for the chain grave. Many of you have probably heard that legend. It's the gravestone of Floyd E. Pruitt, who died in 1920. Mr. Pruitt fought in the World War I, and on the side of his gravestone, clearly visible, is the image of a section of a chain. Legend has it that the chain grows over time, and that the stone has been replaced several times, but the chain always reappears on each new stone. Another part of the legend is that the chain grows from year to year. There are many different stories that circulate about why the stone has a chain on it. One story said that he was a slave owner and he beat a slave to death with a chain. Another says that a jealous husband beat his wife and her lover to death with a chain. Yet another relates the story of a pair of star-crossed lovers who weren't allowed to marry before the man goes off to war and is killed. The woman who loves him watches the funeral from behind a black veil. Another story claims that Mr. Pruitt may or may not have converted to Catholicism and wanted a cross on his gravestone, but his family wouldn't provide one, but the stone provided one for him. What we know from the stone in Mr. Pruitt's life doesn't necessarily correspond with the legends. According to the gravestone, he served in Company C of the 12th Division in World War I. If I can get my pages to come apart. And he was assigned to the 35th Machine Gun Battalion. We don't know if Pruitt saw action in World War I. The 12th Division never left the United States, but the 35th Machine Gun Battalion fought in France. According to the Orange County Health Department at the time of his death, in July of 1920, 2 years after the war ended, Floyd Pruitt was 26 years old, married to a woman named Edna, and worked as a barber. Pruitt died of pulmonary tuberculosis after an illness of about 6 months. Evidently, he didn't beat his wife to death because Edna outlived him. He died in 1920, was 26 years old, so he didn't live during the slavery period. So a lot of these things that are part of the legend just don't quite jive up. So we're going to leave it up to you which story you want to believe. But like I said, Bond's Chapel is just about 3 or 4 miles down that direction, okay? Walk on down here a couple of blocks.
It's down that way. I've been there.
To your left here is the Huron School, former Huron School. The old school burned. They built this school. It served for a short while as a high school and for an elementary school for many years after that. I think it closed in the late 70s, early 80s. Was later, Hoosier Uplands took it over, a fitness center ran here. We used to have church league basketball games in the gym, which is down here. But it's,
Jeff, when was the last year they used this, do you know?
I want to say early 80s.
Early 80s?
Late 70s, early 80s. All the kids moved into Mitchell. The high school kids were brought in about 63, 64. And then I think the elementary kids probably in 82, maybe 83. Yeah. 30 years. In the 1880s, the Archer brothers, y'all have heard of those probably, were a notorious gang of outlaws. They terrorized Martin, Orange, and possibly this corner of Lawrence County as well. It may have been the Archer gang, or another band of desperados, who murdered a whiskey-loving turncoat named Hopper in the spring of 1874 in a cabin just west of Huron, between here and Willow Valley. According to the story, Hopper was lured to the cabin and then beaten to death with a club and buried under the floor of the cabin. The gang members present at the time of the murder, particularly a guy by the name of Dick, the man who committed the dastardly deed, were haunted by a bloody apparition with its brain oozing from its skull. The apparition warned Dick to repent, naming the hour of his execution like this: 3 months, 3 weeks, 3 days, and 3 hours. According to the story, at the appointed time, an officer of the law caught up with Dick and shot him. The rest of the gang were haunted by Hopper's ghost until the end of their days. Okay? So can you imagine that? He was told he had 3 months, 3 days, 3 hours. Well, our enactors are down there for you.
There's a nice picture of it.
Okay, our next story is the 1886 death of Johnson or Johnny Davis. The Johnson family lived in a home in this area. Johnson was the station master for the depot downtown in the 1880s, and he lived up here about a block from the depot with his wife Lizzie and son Fay. And we're going to walk on down. My reenactors will tell us a little bit more when we get down here.
That's a snow thing.
He's from the hill, about a block from the depot, which was over there at that time, and with his wife Lizzie, his son Fay, who was 13 at the time of the events these men are going to discuss.
Hi, I'm Jim Terrell. I'm a farmer around these parts. Along about August 17th, 1886, 2 o'clock in the morning, I heard a loud commotion coming from down here on Railroad Street. And me, like the rest of the men in the neighborhood, we all got up and ran outside to see what was going on. We found Johnny with his throat slashed and his hand cut pretty bad. Well, Johnny told us that Bill Dunn had done it, and to go find that tramp, go find him. So we left Johnny, went to look for him. Well, we found that tramp right down here by the depot, and he was still sitting in the stables with Johnny's pants. The reason Johnny wanted his pants back so bad was because they had the keys to the depot. Johnny was the station master for the depot, didn't want anybody taking off with those. So we found him down here with, still clutching onto Johnny's pants, and we drug him back up here to town and said, Johnny's son, Faye, identified Bill as the one that had broken their house and had cut Johnny when Johnny went chasing after him down the street. So we did the only thing we could do, and we strung him up over here at this tree, and he quit kicking after a minute or two. But they still say that he said, Bill Dunn, done for this world, as they put the noose around his neck.
George Wolford here. After they killed that tramp and he was good and dead, me and my buddy Frank Woods took him out south of town in a box. Frank danced a jig on that box before we threw the dirt over it. Judge Lynch don't waste no time.
Remember when we were talking about Bond's Chapel on that hill up there? That's probably where the burial took place. Another story is that they actually left a stick sticking up out of the casket, and when the kids would go by, they'd agitate his, so he never would rest in peace. I don't know. Bill Richmond told me that.